Hi, welcome to the syllabus overview of computational models of cognitive processes. I'm, how do you call me? Dr. JKL is my most common moniker at the school. Um, but I'm not huge on honorifics. JKL is fine. John Winstead, whatever. I'm around. So this is a course that I am developing actively, and we're gonna have some fun. I think, honestly, I'm excited to be able to develop this course. It's been a while. I've never taught this specific one, but this was my jam in grad school. So, and beyond, it's continued to pick up pace. We're just gonna cover the syllabus today. I'm here just kind of sipping some coffee, and I have the syllabus pulled up. You can actually even see my desktop there. The format's going to change a bunch depending on the video's needs, but this is kind of the general idea. I'll tend to show my face, and I'll have something, the desktop is visible down there, and so you can see I'm moving Streamlabs OBS around. And then the other thing is just what we're looking at, right? So let's just do it. Let's go over the syllabus. It's, kind of tedious first week stuff, but let's talk about it. The quick reference is the easiest page for you for the future. If you have a question, usually I've captured it here. And if you have thoughts someone else can go onto this page, don't hesitate to tell. I would love to make this as accessible as possible for all my courses. Okay. What's the course? You know what? In fact, we'll skip the quick reference because it's a little bit self-explanatory. Everything else is something that you might require my guidance on. So, okay, let's get into what's the course concept, right? What are we doing? This is called Computational Models of Cognitive Processes. So what is a model? We'll cover that. What is a computational model? And what is a cognitive process, and how are we using these things together? And the idea is that these all connect to form this sort of interconnected lattice work of all sort of modern research in COG and AI. It's the sort of how we capture all these fascinating, complex processes our brains do. Not just our brains. Computation does this stuff too. To try and model it, but then also use those models for other things, including further research, but also sometimes like developing artificial intelligences. The real connective tissue here that I think we start with, this is a great one. If you've heard of neurons, you should have by now. You're in a COG Sci degree, pretty advanced. Some of their basic features, right? They have dendrites to collect activations from nearby cells nearby. They have the cell body, which eventually sort of gets to a certain charge level that will propagate a signal forward, right? So that's the information processing capacity of a neuron. We also invented the perceptron to model that, right? That, as we being like society, humans, the broader field. And the idea of this is to model a fairly complex phenomenon in simplified terms, but in ways that is able to propagate information, right? So that's the computationality of it. Now, this is not a lecture. I'm just trying to give you a sketch. I mean, this will be one of the early lectures that we go into. But, it's a great illustration of the real-life, complex, messy thing, and then the way that we can model them in computation sense. Course outcomes. What are we sort of aiming at with the course? What are you trying to get out of it? Want to identify cognitive models and how they fit into the worlds of both cognitive science and artificial intelligence. You're going to explain a lot of intuitions you're going to have built up through interactive demonstrations, hopefully. If possible, every unit I intend to have some kind of interactive element. Think of it like a hands-on museum tour kind of thing. You're going to collaborate, not with people, with large language models like GPT on a variety of tasks. This may be the first time you're hearing anyone talk about GPT and not saying, no, you're going to be a cheater. I'm not like that. This is a new tool. It exists. It fits squarely into the discussion of computational cognitive modeling. And we're going to use it as part of the course content, but we're also going to use it as part of as a facilitator for the course, right? This is an asynchronous course. You're taking it in an online capacity. It's kind of cool to have a system there that can have sort of back and forths with you about the content. At least that's the overall intention. We'll see where we get with all that. Explain the differences between cog modeling and artificial intelligence, as well as their overlap, because that'll be a pretty strong theme throughout. The core is cognitive models, right? But we also explore where those things run off to when we just kind of turn them loose and say, well, if you can compute this way, what if I give you 1 billion servers, right? Understand the progression of all these complex models, and that's sort of built into the design. We'll start with the fundamental concepts and evolve them forward. Connect phenomena from the course to the real world. So a lot of the exercises will include, or a lot of the modules will include reflections where I'll prompt you and, ask that you apply something from this lecture into a real world phenomenon that you know something about, right? And just connecting the dots, explaining how these things fit together with the world that we actually live in, not just me delivering course droplets for you to hang on to. So, connecting, understanding, explaining differences, sure. And just overall the complexities of modern AI, because that's taking an outsized position in the course these days, because holy crap, look what's happening. AI is exploding in this fascinating way. We got to talk about it, and we will. And that's kind of a main point here, is that we need to talk about these things as they're evolving. So those are some outcomes. You got the concept. Course design. All right. You already know this. You signed up for an ON1 course, but it's an asynchronous course. Meaning you can come and go as you please, complete things on your own schedule. It's up to you. I'm not coming to, I won't be trying to peck at you to get you to do things. It's up to you. You're an adult. This is a good skill to build. It's not an easy one every time. Sometimes it is hard to figure out how to schedule your week so that your sort of low pressure stuff like this course can still fit in. That's a life skill. It's kind of important. But that said, it's very, very flexible. The course will not be designed in such a way that I'm trying to eat up your week, It's also non-linear. So this is something I mention only because I hope it helps you make sense of the choices I make for how I develop the content. Your classic course is linear, right? You have your week 1 content, your week 2 content, your week 3 content, and it just sort of builds forward the whole way. You can see my mouse a little bit. Yeah. Classic linear course. The design of this course is going to be a little different. You will have your pick of model units to choose from at the start, right? We'll have a bunch of fundamental models that once we get into the course, past the course overview, you'll be primed enough to say, oh, well, I'm curious about this topic, like memory. I'm more interested in than in neurobio and how the models of neurological, biological stuff is happening versus the way that memory is modeled in cognitive science. And both of those are valid, right? You can choose either. I don't know that those will be the exact ones available, but you'll see. So in theory, the course has it gives you a lot of agency, right? You can sort of choose what to focus on first, if you're more interested in certain things, and build towards one sort of end cap topic. But then you'll go back and you'll fill in the gaps with other content from those same levels, right? Hope that makes sense. It's still roughly consider it the same amount of content. It's just reorganized in a way that you have the freedom to choose what directions you go. Now, in reality, I'm still just a human being, and I'm developing the course. I'm overhauling it from scratch for the first time. So not everything will be there when you start. So as I develop it, you may only have like 1 or 2 options, and so it kind of amounts to something vaguely linear. Now, the later you wait into the course, the more of the content will be developed and the more freedom you'll have, but don't wait too long to start. That's the concept. So we have the old school linear course design, and I'm aiming at this new non-linear course design. Really, that's one of the benefits of asynchronous design, is that you can have a little more freedom. So I'm trying to lean into that. But the reality is I'll be developing this as we go, which is the next big point. Is we're under major construction here. I'm building this thing up from not first principles. I mean, there's tons. Don't worry, there's tons of content I could talk about. It's more about getting it into digestible chunks for you. An infinite pool of content, I assure you. So we'll just see where we get, and I think that I'm excited to keep developing this and get on with it. Let's see what else. Me, hi. Old picture of me, but the beard's a little different, huh? JKL, Dr. JKL, whatever. I'm a cognitive scientist. These days I am also an avid web dev and AI developer when I have the time. And this is the first time on this specific course. It's under construction. My role here is, think of me mostly as like a trail guide who is also building the park. We'll think about that. That doesn't withstand the metaphor. But I'm a bit of I'm your guide. I'm not your dad, right? I'm not here to make you participate correctly. I'm not here to rattle your cage. You know, I intend to check up on you through interactions in the course, and I intend to have occasional check-ins like this where I might talk at breadth. But if you want specific interaction, you need to seek it out here, right? Because it is an async course, and I look forward to that. I really enjoy interacting with students, but that's not inherent to the design. You know, you're not going to see me 2-3 times a week, right? So we're all here together, and I'm trying to show you around some cool stuff. So let's see. How do we communicate in this course? Broadly, we're using Brightspace overall, right? So the best way to get at me that helps me like narrow down what you're talking about is to use the instant message tool inside of Brightspace. You still have my email address. You can still send me an email, but if you do, please, for the love of God, tell me what course you're in. Everyone assumes that that is magically available. It's not. People don't know what course you're in when you email them. This is for not just for me. I'm doing a solid for every other professor that you have. Always tell professors what course you're in and what section, if possible. You know, they can't magically intuit your name from a list of 50, right? So yeah. All that said, a lot of opportunity to interact. You can use course messages. I maybe haven't listed it here, but there is a section in Brightspace where you can actually ask a question in the forum. It's called the Ask a Question forum. It's a great place because that is an answer that's a place where if you ask a question, I can give you an answer that everyone can see, which is great. Because oftentimes if you're asking a question, you're not the only one, right? So please feel free to ask questions, send messages, all this stuff. And if you want more direct one-on-one time, you can have it. I have a self-scheduling link. I have a Google Meet, a standing place that the same link will get you to my office in Google Meet. I don't tend to just sit in there like with office hours. Used to do that. People didn't ever take me up on it, so I just stopped doing it. So instead, you can just schedule time. And please, you can always schedule time. Plan for 15, 30-minute sessions of, you just want to talk about the content or you're confused about something. Like, that's great. I'm here. I mentioned here, I don't tend to hold office hours space anymore, but that can change. We'll see. But otherwise, by appointment is more more critical. Okay, what are we doing in the course? What actual stuff will you be doing with your time when you sit down to access this course and try to do some stuff? The main thing will be my lecture videos, as per usual. If you've had a course with me before in an online setting, lecture videos are my bread and butter. It's still, I'm trying to make them a little bit more granular, like smaller, so not an hour and 15 minutes per hope. But maybe more like a couple of videos that are 5 minutes and one that's 15 or something, breaking up the ideas a little better. That's not a promise, but the idea is I am leaning away from super mega lectures that are way too long, which you've seen in some of my courses. But the idea is that, it's for us to get really into the details, right? Into the content of the course, because you do need a voice, right? I'm not just going to hand you the slides and say good luck. That's the worst possible learning experience. In fact, that's what a lot of students got at the start of the pandemic, and I'm not about that, right? I take the online asynchronous course design really seriously. Like, I believe there is such potential in this format, and here we are trying to push it. So lecture videos, key. I'll try to make them as engaging as always. I will be using a little more of my face this time around, I think. Lecture quizzes. Each lecture module will have some kind of quiz in it. I'm saying they are typically 5 questions. That might vary slightly, especially depending on length of the video associated. These are low stakes. You've seen these before if you've had my courses. They're 5 questions usually, and they're repeatable up to 5 times. It's not hard to do well on them, right? But there is a limit, so that if you are just trying to like brute force it, you can't. You end up, hitting past your number. But really, it's less about the fear factor of that, and more about, like, I'm not worried about you cheating. I want you to get the content, right? So if you get to the 4th instance of the quiz and you still really don't understand what's going on, reach out, schedule a meeting. I can help clarify stuff from the content. That's my job. So reflections, there will be quizzing, in addition to the quizzing, you will have some kind of reflection. This might take the form of a journal, where I'm just asking you, hey, here's an open-ended question that's very relevant to what we just talked about. Run with it. Show me your words. That's what I want out of these activities. Show me your words, because if you show me your words, you can show me how you're thinking about stuff, and that's good for me as an instructor. It's also just good for your brain in terms of like making you produce language from the content is an often missed step in how we produce this. Just ticking the box on multiple choice is not enough to get your brain really wrapped around certain things. So I make you do words. However, in addition to just journals, as I said before, I am an emerging AI developer, and we'll be using AI chatbots. And the idea behind this will be, you will have a conversation with a chatbot in lieu of, say, a journal. It's the same vibe, right? There may even be the same guiding question, open-ended question. But the chatbot, GPT-4 in most cases here, is going to be there to chat with you about it. Now, it knows a lot of stuff by default. I'm also going to load it up with some content from the course specifically to tell it what we have talked about, and you'll be able to just discuss it with it. You'll see what that's like soon. We'll get into the AI chat reflections pretty quickly, I think, in terms of what's included in the content, and that's a chance for you to interact with one of these systems in a fairly light way. I think there's a lot of weird pressure around these systems, but I also think a lot of people have not even seen GPT-4 yet. It's different. So footing the bill on that, and we're gonna have I think we'll have some fun with it. More on that soon. There's a little bit more discussion there. Interactive examples and assignments. So this is another activity. For example, we talked about I'll scroll back up, the perceptron up here, right? And the idea of like the perceptron and how it's a model and what it means for other forms of computation. And I will find or make some sort of interactive demo for you to play around with it too. Because a fundamental piece of cognition and it is this transformation of information, of cognitive principles in humanity, but also in computing principles and kind of all over the place. And it's this core concept that information can change over time. And how does it do that? The problem with trying to demonstrate a lot of that stuff to you without you being able to interact with it is that it's inherently a thing of change. So you need to be able to see those changes. That's the goal with the interactive element. So those will typically be part of the unit and just like there for you to explore. I may also have assignments around them just to get you to do something goal-oriented, not necessarily to, be an incredible challenge, but more just like, okay, wait, here's the thing you should figure out, and you're going to play around here and see what you can do. So that's the primary colors of this course: lecture videos, quizzes, reflections, and interactive examples with the occasional assignment. Sorry, lip smacks. Tech you need. You need to use, honestly, I should just put web browser once, but Brightspace, you're going to use that for a lot of stuff. YouTube lectures and other instructional videos will probably be on YouTube. I might post them just on Brightspace, depends on what I'm doing. Like the little updates that I'll include with the course announcements, that'll just be videos, but like on Brightspace. But I might publish some of the more stable content to YouTube. You'll see. It really won't be a difference for you. Google Meet for all of interacting with me. Meeting code Dr. JKL if you're on campus. And then web browser, right? Just make sure you have like a reasonably modern web browser. Chrome's great. I use Chrome despite everything about it. Yeah, so not a whole lot of tech involved. You also will note that there's no textbook. We are just doing this course based on all the content that I've absorbed over my entire history of being a PhD. So you're going to get some good content. But no textbook required, so no purchase is required. There is exactly one deadline in this asynchronous course that you need to know about, and that is the final one. Again, the course is fully asynchronous. You have tons of flexibility. You can do things whenever you want during the semester. It is up to you. You probably know by now that there are consequences for you if you wait until the final week to do all of the content. Don't do that. It's kind of a silly idea. Don't let your stuff pile up, because there's really nothing that anyone can do, including me, if you get to the very end and you say, oh God, I'm really trying to catch up. It's like, yeah, you tried to put 15 weeks worth of work into one. Yup. So, but all said, I'm not. People will end up in that scenario. I honestly don't judge you. It happens to people. Just recognize that it's not an ideal scenario. We want to try to avoid it. The reason there has to be a timeline is that at some point the course has to end, even if I'm being very async positive. So the Sunday after finals week is when everything is due, including anything we do for a final, which I'm not totally settled on yet. Any assignments, any quizzes, any reflections, activities, all this stuff, it's all due that same day, right? Don't wait until that day to do everything, but it's all due then. I can't take things after that. Grades go in that next week. I have to have time to tabulate. I'm not going to play a game of shuffle with you. So the hard deadline is the hard deadline. Everything else is open to you. So just work wisely, pace yourself, look for ways to do this that aren't just, the old-fashioned linear way. Okay. Assessments and grading. Quizzes are half the course. So this is to me because What I care about most is you absorbing the lectures and making sense of them. The quizzes I design, they are multiple choice, but they're also pretty like tightly tuned to the things that I want you to see you demonstrate knowledge of. So that's the most of it. And again, remember, they're all pretty short and they're all low stakes. Like, you have repeated attempts, they're easy to get. Each one of them is only worth some small fraction of your full grade. Like, the quizzes are fair and plentiful. So this is the bread and butter. Reflections, 20%. Now, what are we doing here? Remember, this is a place to reflect on content. Again, sometimes it's a personal journal, sometimes it's a chat with an AI system that is tuned to the particular conversation. They're open-ended, so really it's kind of a form of participation, right? And they're great for you. They're awesome for me because I can see what you're saying and how you're thinking about the content. Love that stuff. Great for me. More than I would ever get in an in-person course, because in-person courses, students will just sit there if you ask them questions. Meanwhile, this way, I get like 2 paragraphs out of every one of you. It's awesome. So yeah, sorry for the work. But they're open-ended, and it's for you to kind of tie things to to broader ideas, or maybe more focused ideas that you have. And they're graded on effortful completion. Now, what that means is that there's no way I'm reading every single word of every journal. You have to know that up front. That's unrealistic expectation if you have it. Reality is, I will scan every one of them. My eyes will touch every one of them. And if it seems like you're kind of getting it, I might just be like, great, you got a 10. And if it seems like you're struggling, I might jump in and say, hey, let me help clarify some stuff. And if it seems like you're like sprinting off with it and doing awesome you're like wrote 2 pages and you're like, whoa, I got ideas, I might chat with you about those too. Point is, I'm not grading these word for word. I'm not picking apart your spelling. That's not the vibe. So the majority of this is put in the effort. I can tell low effort. I can tell no effort. And I will give you a 0 for no effort. Sorry. That's just how it's going to go. But it's not hard to demonstrate effort. Engage with the content. Engage with the ideas. Take the idea that you are writing something down seriously, and that's it. It doesn't matter exactly what you say. It matters that you care about trying to connect ideas. Show me that. Show the AI that. These things are going to blow your mind. Okay, assignments. These are those hands-on exercises I was talking about, interacting with some of the models from the lectures, that kind of stuff. These will be guided. I will give some kind of demonstration, perhaps not of the exact assignment, but of something very similar to the assignment when they come up. I don't think there will be an assignment for every single module. I think that the model will have to lend itself to some sort of exploration that's interesting. So I have it listed here at 20%. Worst case scenario, if that changes, it will be worth less, and the quizzes will be worth more. The things you're already doing for half the grade, they could go up if assignments don't really work out. Just a contingency I'm committing to on video with you here that sort of just came to mind as we were discussing this segment. But overall, I think those interactive components are important and useful, so I will try to focus on them going forward. The final, I'm guaranteeing, is worth no more than 10% of your grade. I'm not sure what form it will take yet. It might be a simple exam, which you may have seen in some of my courses before, or it might be something more interesting. We'll see what becomes of my developer capabilities by the time we get to that point. The old standard would be something along the lines of 50 multiple choice questions from all the lecture quizzes that you already did, and then one sort of cumulative essay that kind of shows me what you're walking away from the class with. And the reflections are what will prep you for that, right? So like a bunch of stuff from the quizzes, a bunch of stuff from reflection mentality, and that would be the final. So that's the breakdown. We have half of its quizzes. We got some other activities, including reflections and exercises, and then a little slice of the pie for the final. Meaning, you do the quizzes, you are in great shape to begin with, because you get multiple chances Just keep up with them. That's half the work. The rest comes from you engaging and participating in the other content that occurs. Make sense? A classic grading scale. This is actually nothing interesting here. Same as you've ever seen. Course modules. Let's talk a little bit about this. They're not all planned yet. Believe me, like I said before, I have like 150 possible modules that we could get in here. I'm still figuring out the right direction to chart the course. Ooh, knocking the microphone around. So this is sort of a sketch, and everything under in orange italics is sort of this seems like a good idea. Not sure if we'll actually get there. Syllabus and setup. This one. The course overview, which will be a couple of different ideas. It'll be probably a preview. So a core concept of the course with about like what is modeling, what is computational modeling, what is that stuff, and also some looks at the more advanced models that we'll talk about later in the course, just to sort of whet your appetite, get you curious about them. We'll have I've broken it up into these three categories, and that they're kind of fuzzy, but fundamentals essentially means any model that I'm not having a prerequisite for. So like the perceptron, we start there. You know, I don't do 6 weeks of neurobio before we talk about what the perceptron can do. I do a bit of the neural information transmission stuff in that lecture, and then we talk about what the perceptron is, how it was modeled, what the the whole idea. But another one in the fundamentals area would be like memory models and how decay rates function, because decay rates play a major role in later modeling. Decision trees and expert systems. So decision-making models. How do you make a decision? And what are the structures of that? The tree-based structure of like, oh, if it's raining outside, grab umbrella. And again, just these fundamental units. They are not super related to each other, so they're all sort of available at the start, or would be if they were all built. Intermediate models will be things that require some of this stuff, but still aren't quite as complex as our final models. And then the advanced models are, so an example of that would be like recurrent neural networks, how they maintain signal and blah, 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 blah. Things that are, again, more complex than a single perceptron, but not quite as complex as your spawns and your transformers that exist. So finally, with two things, more advanced sort of cognitive architectures like ACT-R and SOAR and Spawn, just fascinating new kid on the block after maybe 2015, I think. And we'll get into AI proper with transformers and GPT, because this stuff has splashed heavily onto the scene. It's only ramping up in complexity and speed. You need to know about them. They're also very cognitive in a lot of fascinating ways that keep getting weirder. So again, this really needs to be a major part of the course. Expect a lot of content on that section. So even at the remiss of some of the earlier modules, I'm going to put a lot of effort into transformers. And then again, the final exam, if it takes such a form, would be one of the modules. And that's it. This is the idea. Again, there's plenty of content. It's more about what we get to and how we get to it. But I can promise these three, the ones in black, for sure. And I will certainly do something on memory. I'm just not sure if it will be memory and decay rates. We'll talk about it. Okay. Now, I keep talking about using AI, using large language models. There's some like things you need to be aware of about using AI and large language models. So in the course, we're going to talk about them. As I just said, transformers and GPT is like at least one unit. But we're also going to use them, and we'll use them in a few ways. I think the primary way is as that reflection partner, just like a chat bot ready to have a conversation with you about the course material, but also related course material or related content that you're interested in or whatever. These things are really bizarrely, extremely knowledgeable in a lot of ways. And again, having this sort of open-ended chat environment with them is really nice. You're not being pressured to cheat on something. You're not being pressured to solve a problem with it. It's more just like a slow exploration where you can ask questions or have it prompt you with questions or whatever. But that, sort of nice talk about it aside, there's a few points that we have to cover. First, privacy can't be fully guaranteed, right? We're interacting with GPT-4. Everything you say will necessarily be sent to OpenAI, the company, the developer and owner of GPT-4. On the one hand, they're like any other tech company. You give all your data away to for free, whatever. Like everything you do on Instagram belongs to Mark Zuckerberg. I hope you know that already. If you don't, you need to. Whatever. So, but given that that's the general case, the other side of that coin is, look, they're probably just going to use these things on the one side. They're probably just going to use them to like train their own models up further, right? Doesn't seem like it's in their best interest to sell them off to skeezy companies for a quick buck. On the other hand, you don't have any control. We don't have any control. I don't have any control. No one has any control of what large corporate entities do with your data. That's the way it is. So, given that they're such an integral part of the course, here's the take-home advice. Treat the chats with the AI the same way you might treat talking in public. It's cool, talk about your dog, don't bring up your social security number. There's no way for us to guarantee that doesn't get out in some way that you don't want. So, tread with care. Don't open up about your complete, don't tell it your medical records or whatever. Avoid terms of service abuse. So, all of the large language models these days that are available to interact with, they have guidelines for their usage, right? A lot of things like don't have me commit war crimes. I'm not going to help you cook meth. It has all these gateways put in, these protection layers. The model itself, in the conversation, will warn you if you stray into territory that it can't engage with. If you keep pushing, the system files a report on the account used, mine. Don't do that. I'm footing the bill for this entire course. Every time we use this thing, don't worry about the cost, but don't recognize that I am paying. And don't get the whole course banned and ruin it for everybody, right? So, and to be clear, I totally get it. Once you start interacting with these things, you're like, what can it do? What will it do? You can get very curious. If it gives you a warning, don't worry. I've gotten pretty wild with testing the boundaries myself. As long as you don't push it, you'll be all right. If we accumulate enough reports from it, then everything fails. So avoid contributing in that way. Academic honesty. So I don't know any other courses that are like as forward thinking as I'm being about GPT right now. Don't use the chat bots in this course to cheat in other courses. I can see it. I'm not going to take kindly to that behavior in the course. If someone comes knocking, I'll point to this warning. I'm going to wash my hands of it. You will not have my protection. That said, in this course, use them however you want. Like, if you feel like you need to use them to try and ace the quizzes, whatever, it's probably not even worth your time. The quizzes are not that hard. Also, it might not get them right. It doesn't know everything that I know. It knows a lot, but it doesn't know everything that I know. And it doesn't know what I'm doing with the course, right? So, if you plan to use a tool like this to cheat in a course, don't do it in this one. Don't involve this course in you cheating in other courses. Do it on your own time, your own dime. That said, I don't want this to be such a negative vibe, right? Like, again, I'm very forward thinking about these models. I think everyone needs to learn how they work yesterday, not today. Today's too late. Yesterday was when we needed to know how they work because it's moving fast. So Yeah, this is all the sort of like interactive stuff. Be careful. Try not to abuse it, and cheat somewhere else if you feel the need to cheat. Now, research data consent request. This is me coming to you, arms open, hopeful. As you're using the bots in this course, you're going to exchange a lot of information with the bot, right? That's what the conversations are. Like, you're going to be doing conversations with it. You're going to maybe have the occasional task with it or some sort of exploration with it. The way we use them might shift around. But put it a different way, you and the bot are going to generate a lot of data. I am requesting that your permission to use that data later on for a whole variety of things like COG research, AI research, pedagogical research, right? Like trying to revise some of the ways that we teach now that these tools exist, right? And seeing how that functions. Course design and improvements to the course and other related things all in the same space as what all that is. If you did give that permission, I assure you all of your data would be fully anonymized before ever being used in some outside capacity. It would be aggregated before any analysis, so typically your stuff will be lumped together. It's not just like picking you out and saying, hey, look what he said. It'll be more like, of 75 students, these percentage had this kind of indirect, whatever. And no information would be stored to link you back to your data. I would be personally super grateful if you gave me the consent to use this data beyond the end of the course. But if for any reason you don't want that to be the case for your data, that's okay. You can say no. There will be a quiz question. Actually, I think it's turning out it needs to be a survey. Ungraded, it's required. I need an answer from you, but it's ungraded. So it's just a single question of, hey, do you opt in or do you opt out of allowing the professor to use your data in the future? Either way, you're good. I appreciate you. Now we're into Cleary Title IX stuff. This is really just kind of reiterating things that are available on campus. If you have harassment questions, intellectual integrity, we already touched on. Here's my quick little beat. Don't cheat. I get it. Life is hard. I'm not here to judge. I don't care, actually. But don't cheat in a way that I catch you cheating and I can't be on your side, right? I'm a champion of you surviving in the world, right? I am not a champion of aiding you in breaking rules elsewhere. I think it probably makes sense by now. Disabilities, there's tools on campus if you have disabilities that you need attention for, and I'm happy to accommodate in any way I can, and tech support stuff. And then at the end, I have a little personal note that I'll just let you read. It's kind of a vibe booster ever since the pandemic and everything else that keeps happening. So just, you're hanging there. That's it. Let's call it. Welcome to the course. I look forward to the further development. I look forward to really digging into the content. I think this is some of the most fascinating stuff in the world, and that's why I got my PhD in it. So, welcome. From the COG program director to you, I'm really happy you're here. Let's talk about some wild robots, man. Take care. Talk to you soon.